Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. I'm a life and marriage coach for moms, wife, mom of 3, and I'm also an Aries, and for my fellow human design nerds, a sacral manifesting generator. This podcast is for women who want to be happier in their marriage as they navigate their journey through motherhood, even if you're like me and you weren't shown how while growing up. Inside, we're going to be talking about breaking generational cycles when it comes to how to handle conflict in healthy ways, redefining motherhood your way, and prioritizing your well-being, because here, we believe that women don't have to sacrifice their happiness to be a great mom. And a quick note to mamas listening with kids around, you may want to pop your earbuds in because nothing is left unsaid on this show, which means there may be times where something I say isn't meant for little ears. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. Today is a really special episode because I'm sure as a mom, you have dealt with this situation as I know I have. Here we have Monica Tanner. She is a relationship and intimacy expert. She is married to her best friend, a boss mom to 4 growing humans, and a weekly podcaster at Secrets of Happily Ever After. She helps married couples ditch resentment and roommate syndrome to create an intimate friendship so they can start writing their own happily ever after love story. Monica, I'm so excited to have you as a guest on the show and have you share with us about how to reestablish your intimate connection after having kids. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Michelle, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let our listeners get to know you a little bit better. Can you share with us where you live, how old your kids are, and a little bit more about what you do?
Awesome. Sure. I live in Boise, Idaho. I'm originally from Texas, but I moved here with my husband. He actually won a putt-putt tournament, so I had to leave Texas and move to Idaho, but I'm not mad about it. It's such a fantastic place to raise a family. We have 4 children. The oldest is 19 and serving a 2-year mission in Chile. And
Wow.
then I have a 16-year-old daughter, a 14-year-old daughter, so lots of raging hormones. That's super fun, but I would never have it any other way. And then an 11-year-old son who misses his brother like more than anything.
Oh.
So yes, that is our family. We have so much fun together. I have a super hot, hunky husband who I absolutely love. And what I do is I help couples write their happily ever after love story, because it's really sad that a lot of, they say at least half of all couples that get married get divorced, and a way higher percentage than that just kind of relegate themselves to living with another person. So they end up in roommate syndrome. There's a lot of resentment, and they haven't learned the skills or taken the steps necessary to really make their marriage a powerful vehicle for becoming their best selves. They just kind of are there. And so what I tell people is that I help you become that darling old couple shuffling down the street, hand in hand, smiling at everyone, because they absolutely love their life and they have so much wisdom to share. And everybody walks by and looks at them and is like, I want to be like that someday, right? And so I help you do that. That's what I am so passionate about creating more of in this world.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. I love walking and seeing old couples still holding hands or laughing together. And I'm always like, Steven, I want that to be us. Yes. So sweet.
Restaurants talking or helping each other out of the car. Or I work out at a gym where on the top floor, it looks down onto the pool. And so I'll be on the treadmill or something like that. And you'll look down and this sweet old man is helping his sweet old wife into the pool to do water aerobics or something.
Yeah.
And it just makes my heart smile, because I'm they have lived such a beautiful life, and I'm sure they've had challenges. I'm sure, they've experienced all the things, but they've gotten through it, and they love each other and support each other. And it just makes me explode with gratitude.
I know. And excitement, right? That gets to be us because we're being super intentional about our marriage.
Right. And that's such a great word.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So, what led you to become a relationship and intimacy expert?
It's funny. My parents divorced when I was 12, and it was like a long road. My mom had a lot of baggage that she had to sort through. And so she was kind of not around for a lot of my growing up years. Like my teenage girls are in the stage I was in when my mom was kind of like trying to figure herself out. And so I missed a lot of that kind of connecting with her that I'm getting to experience with my own girls, which is I'm so very proud of that. But I just became obsessed with what makes marriages strong and lasting. I just would study my friends' parents, and I just, anything I could get my hands on and read about marriage, I'm like obsessed with fairy tales, which is why my company is called Secrets of Happily Ever After. I know that it's possible, not the way Hollywood writes it, right? Or Disney, but I know that now I've interviewed enough couples who've been married over 50 years. It's like my favorite thing to do. Anytime I meet a couple who's been married for more than 50 years, I just want to ask them all the questions about all the things they've learned. And here's the thing, nobody is immune to hardship. Like life gets hard. But what a great blessing when we have a partner who is there to support us and love us and encourage us through all the hard times. But the thing is people don't come that way. They don't just know how to be that kind of a partner for each other. It's like a learned behavior. It's a skill. And it's something that you kind of learn like in the hard times. So, but there's skills that you can learn. And I think that to really become that powerhouse couple that really, really has earned that relationship that we all want at the end of our life, you have to have a neutral third party. Now, this isn't, I mean, maybe a very small percentage of people can do it on their own, but I actually think that the best way to really achieve that is to have a neutral third party help you see the things you can't see. So like I say, you can't see the label from the inside of the bottle. And so as we go on in this life, we create these dynamics with each other. And so whenever there's conflict or challenge or disagreement or something like that, which inevitably there will always be because we're very different humans, opposites attract, and that's like very obvious across the board. You create these dynamics. And so when you have a neutral third party who, isn't there to take sides or anything like that, you can kind of point out these dynamics. And once a couple is aware of the things that they do and the dynamics they've created in their marriage, then they can start to change it. They can learn the skills that are necessary to be like, oh, I'm doing that thing. I'm doing that thing that draws my partner into their thing, and they can start to change it. And it's so beautiful when a couple starts to intentionally take control of the story they're writing about their life. Instead of falling into those negative feedback loops and patterns, they start to just pull themselves out of it and create these really productive and healthy ways of interacting with each other.
I love it so much. I mean, as a fellow relationship coach, it really is about like, it's not about them not wanting to be there for us. It really is about where are we experiencing moments of conflict because of our own internal dialogue, because of our internal beliefs. Like there's just so much going on behind the scenes that gets left unsaid and things get misunderstood because we have different experiences growing up in different relationships. We have our own insecurities that we're working through and our own ways of doing things that could be driving our partner away, like you said. So it is more than just like, they're not being there for us. Well, why not? And what is it that you want? And do they know? And just like, there's so much to it that it does benefit couples to have that neutral third party, because when you're in it, you got tunnel vision, right? And you have emotions, and emotions can really have us ignoring certain things that is key information for us to move forward. So I could not agree more with what you're saying.
It's
All
so
right. So, to the topic that I'm sure a lot of our listeners here want to know about, right? For me personally, there's no such thing as TMI, by the way. On my show, there's no such thing as TMI. As soon as I had kids, my sex drive went way down. Like, I would have been perfectly happy not ever having sex because I just didn't have the desire, right? Not to say that I didn't enjoy it during the process, but I just didn't think about it. I didn't have that, like, teenage drive where it's like, oh yeah, like, right?
Right.
And so I want to know from you, why do you think having an intimate friendship is so important? Okay, get this part, right? This part is the kicker. Why is it important for raising happy, healthy kids? Like, we don't necessarily connect those two together, but share with our listeners why having that is so important to raising our kids to be happy and healthy.
Oh my gosh. First of all, how much time do we have? Because I could talk about this topic for weeks.
Yeah.
But I'll do the best that I can with the time that we have, because it's so very common. Like, what you go through, everyone goes through. Like, it's just like, I think, a stage of development, and nothing has gone wrong. So don't spend any time and energy thinking, what is wrong with me? I'm not attracted to my partner anymore. Like, all of those thoughts are not useful. Like, they're not productive, and they're not going to get you anywhere. So I'm going to give you some tips and tricks, and I promise you they will be simple, but they won't be easy. So it's going to take some focused energy and attention to really change your mindset around a lot of these things. So the biggest thing I hear from busy mamas with young children is that by the end of the day, they are so touched out, and their partner comes home and wants a little bit of attention, and they are like, one more thing. Like, I can't do one more thing. I can't serve one more human. I am exhausted, right? And so there's a couple problematic thoughts in there. One of them is that they have to serve this other human. Like, it's another thing on my to-do list, right? So instead of feeling that way, I want you to think about how being intimate, or spending time and giving attention to your partner, can be for you. Because a lot of times as moms, we think, oh, sex is for my partner. Like, men need sex, and I'm just supposed to give it to them whether I want to or not. And that's very unattractive. Like, that's very not sexy when you look at this man and you're like, oh my gosh, he needs something from me. And sex is very intimate, it's very personal. You're letting your husband into your personal space. Like, as women, we're like physiologically more vulnerable in that situation. And so all those thoughts creep in, like, oh, it's like one more thing that I'm required to do before I can just relax. So if we think about sex, though, as a way that we can unwind and recharge, and it's nourishing for us, it changes the context dramatically. So this is a conversation you can have with your partner, that at the end of a long day, you feel like you've been serving everyone. You feel exhausted and touched out. And so the time that you're going to spend together sexually needs to be nourishing for you. And so you're going to have to spend a little bit of time figuring out what that means to you. If that means just holding and snuggling and just like being in each other's arms, then that's what's nourishing for you. If it means drawing you a hot bath, and maybe, bringing you a book, and maybe you have the opportunity to, even like cultivate those sexual feelings while you're relaxing in a hot bath, then that's what it means. If it means, touching you in certain ways, or serving you in certain ways, or allowing you to download your challenges of the day verbally, and then just holding you, then that's what that means. But you want to bring your partner in. How can they nourish you? How can sex be for you? And so you'll want to spend some time on your own first, figuring out what that is. And then you want to communicate that to your partner. And I promise it activates the law of reciprocity. So don't worry that you're just going to be taking from your partner, because if you really do it right, your partner's going to want to give to you, and men naturally want to give to their wives sexually. That's just mostly programmed into men. They just need to know how to do it. But once they've given to you, it will replenish you and you'll want to give to them. So don't worry that you're just going to be taking and taking and taking, because that typically doesn't happen.
Oh my gosh, so much goodness that you just shared. And as a woman, obviously, I can attest to how much truth is in what she's saying. Because like I said, when I, first had my son, I felt like asexual. Like I literally felt like I had no sexual hormones anymore. I just was here to take care of this child. Yeah, it felt like an obligation. It's like, okay, well, I know you need this. I don't necessarily need this. I guess we can do it because I want you to be happy. And it was just so unfulfilling that I just tried to do it as least possible. But now, now that I truly understand what it requires, it has changed our sex life so much, right? Like when you said you first have to know what you need in order to want it, right? Like that was such a profound moment for me when I realized that, oh, what do I need? Right? I always thought about what do I need sexually? No, there's so much more to that. There's oh, what do I need to relax? What do I need to have the energy to do this? What do I need to feel open and attractive and sexy and flirtatious to do this? And ladies, your partner wants to satisfy you. They receive satisfaction seeing you satisfied. That is not selfish for you to be like, I need this to want to do more of this. They're going to be like, okay, at the end of the day, they just want to connect, right? Give them the formula.
Yes. Yeah. Another thing I think that's really a dangerous kind of thought pattern that we get into is that okay, here I am and I've got, the house is not going to clean itself. The kids cannot get themselves what they need, right? They need me. And I have this husband who is an adult and he can do all the things for himself, right? If he needs to get to the gym, he can drive himself there. If he's hungry, he can make himself a sandwich. So we think in our order of importance that, all of these things need me, but he doesn't need me. And so I hear a lot of women who are like, you know what, when my kids are grown, then I'll, hang out with my husband more. But right now, my kids need me and all these things that I have to do. And then I'm just tired, and he can totally take care of himself. So that's a really dangerous way of thinking, because your partner needs connection with you. I work with so many men. In fact, when I first got into doing this, I had a big email list, and I sent this email to my list and I said, what is the one thing you would want to improve about your marriage that I could help you? And I got pages long emails from men describing how incredible their wives were. My wife works so hard and she comes home and takes care of the kids, and she, runs these companies and serves all of these people. She's so incredible. And I am last on her list of priorities. I get whatever's left over after she's given her all to everything else. And I just miss her. I just want to be with her. So many men feel this way about their wives. They look up to you. They respect you. They think you're amazing, but they just want a little piece of that. And so don't ever fall in the trap of thinking that your husband doesn't need you. Even if he doesn't articulate that well, husbands, they married you for a reason. He probably looks at all that you do. And even if he's this is another thing that's really important is like hurt people hurt people. So like sometimes for a period of time, like my husband did this too. Like he'd come home and be like, what even got done today? Right? Like my kids are running around naked and crying. My house is a mess. Dinner's not on the table. Like it looks as though nothing got accomplished. And he would come home and say things like that, which would cut me to the core, make him less attractive to me, right? But really, that's like his hurt kind of feeling neglected. Like, hey, I would love to hang out with you. But since I know that you're doing all of these other things and I'm like last on the list, I'm going to just try anything I can to get your attention. And that seems to work, right? So their behavior is always an indication of their pain. So if they're like not being kind, it's probably because they're trying everything they can possibly think of to just get a little bit of attention for you to notice them. Even if you're upset with them, that's like drawing out some emotion that's going in their direction. So try to get to the core of that. Like, what is it that your husband really needs and wants? And see if you can't create your day so that you have energy for them. If that means taking a nap when your kids are napping, if that means, letting him play with the kids for about an hour when he gets home so you can kind of recharge and have that energy for him. If that means like having him do bedtime a couple times a week and so you can relax and read your book or take a hot bath so that when he's and the kids are in bed and then you have a little bit of energy left over, or if it means starting the day with a little bit of like, attention towards him. Like, see if you can create something that will allow for energy for your spouse and see if that changes his behavior.
Yes, I love that. And one really like great way to do this, if you journal or if you like go on walks or shower, just ask yourself, if I wanted to be intimate again, like if I want our intimate life to be better, what would I need to want to be intimate with them? What do I need? And communicate it. Like it is so, so important because at the end of the day, like I said, like they just want to connect with you. And if that's the end result and you share that with them and share what you need to get to that point, they're gonna move everything to the side to be like, I'm gonna help her so that we can get that time together, right? Because that's really what it's about. They married you to be with you.
It's so true. And I have a client, and sometimes you can get really creative. Like I have a client and her husband wanted to spend time with her, so he'd plan these elaborate getaways, right? And she would find that she would get there and she was just like even more tired and she didn't want to spend any time with him. So we finally figured out that like they would plan these vacations and she would leave first and she would be there wherever they were going for like 24 to 48 hours just on her own. And then he would fly and meet her. And that was the time that she needed to kind of sleep and feel human again and like go to dinner by herself and just kind of like they had a special needs child. And so it was very taxing on her. And so they would take these like quarterly vacations, but she would leave before he did. And so she could rest and recharge. And by the time he got there, she was ready to have fun with him. Right? It's like,
I love that.
You've got to tune into what your needs are and then just communicate. And husbands are like, thank you. Like, thank you for giving me the cheat code to your heart. Right?
Yes.
But we've got to figure out what that is first. And that's what most women won't do.
Yeah, I totally agree. Instead of cheat codes, I always say like you have to first understand how to write your own manual and then you give it to them, right? Mm-hmm. Like you gotta give it to them. And I love what your client came up with because she essentially had to date herself and then she'd be ready to date him, right? That's beautiful. I love that. Amazing. So how does this help our kids? Like how does having this this flirtatious, passionate relationship that goes beyond being co-parenting roommates, right? Like partnership aside, how does having that really strong connection help us raise happy, healthy kids?
So good. Such a great question. And like I said, I can talk about this for so long, but your kids are really good at tracking feelings. Like they feel so much more than what they see. And so it's very hard to trick them. Like you can't trick them into thinking that you have a good relationship because they track everything. So you being really connected to your partner is so it gives them a sense of security. It gives them a sense of belonging. They feel loved by both partners. Now, even when you're disagreeing, you're showing them, which is actually fantastic. I don't want you to hide. If you're having conflict with your spouse, if you disagree on where you should go for dinner, or we should do this for our vacation instead of this, like when you're in conflict, let the children see that that's a normal part of your relationship and that you're going to make up, right? Like I remember my young kids would come to me like after my husband and I would be in a fight or something like that. And maybe I'd be emotional and they'd come up to me and say, "Mommy, are you going to get a divorce?" And I remember just, no, do not ever worry about that. Mommy and Daddy, sometimes we disagree. And sometimes, we fight like this and we're emotional, but it's because we love each other so much. Like I'm crying because I love your daddy so much and he's not going anywhere and I'm not going anywhere. And we will always love each other first and you. And it's just such a calming, like, there's so much research that shows that kids that grow up in families that are solid like this, they do better in school, they do less drugs, all of these dangerous behaviors that these kids, because they don't feel confident, they don't create these really secure attachments with their primary caregivers, right? So that's number one. But also, like, I have all teenagers now, right? And so when my husband comes home and we like smooch and embrace and like pinch each other's butt, they like to like roll their eyes and like, get a room and like all of these things, but they smile, right? Like one of my most highest performing reels is like me coming home from a trip and my husband and my daughters were in the kitchen and I went and I like pinched my husband's butt, right? And it was my daughter was sitting at the counter filming. Like she filmed me walking in the door and pitching my husband's butt. And that reel has like millions of views. And it wasn't done on purpose. Like it wasn't staged, nothing. Like I looked over at her and I'm like, did you just bust me? Right. And she just was laughing and they're always watching. I mean, that is just evidence that they're watching your behaviors. So if you kind of reel back when your husband touches you, or, you kind of flinch over, or, you don't really work together well. The kids see that, they track that, and that's what they take into their relationships going forward, right? So I always say, like, ask yourself if your child married someone who treated your partner like you treat your partner, would you like that person? Or would you be like, don't treat my baby that way, right? Like, and then try to treat your spouse the way you would want your children's spouses to treat them. Sorry, that's a lot of words. But basically, you want to be that great partner for your spouse that you want your children to end up with. And that's what you're teaching them. And not only that, it's more than your behaviors. It's more than the things you talk about. It's literally, it's a feeling that you create in your family. And it's a blueprint that you're handing down to your children that they will repeat and look for as they move along as well.
Oh my gosh, yes. Like even just like the pinching of the butt thing, it just made me think like, what type of relationship or marriage do you want your kids to end up having? I'm sure like it's going to be difficult for you to see it now. You're like, I don't want to see them flirting, but like, I'm sure you want that for them. You want them to feel desired, appreciated, seen, loved, and nurtured and really held, right? So do those things. Let them see it. Obviously, like, leave the inappropriate stuff behind doors, but all the other stuff, the playfulness, the flirting, like that is completely okay and welcomed for them to see. Even if they roll their eyes, in the back of their minds are like, I'm so glad they love each other. It makes me feel safe, like you said, to know that our family is secure, because you're the bedrock, you're the foundation of the family. Like, they exist because of you guys. So don't be afraid to do whatever you need to do to strengthen that and solidify your future together, right? So
And it's
I love
such a
everything you shared.
cliche, but the best thing you can do for your kids is to love your spouse
Oh
well,
yeah.
to let them see that, right? Because a connected partnership that works as a team are going to go so much farther. Like, my kids know without a shadow of a doubt, I'm always going to take their dad's side over theirs, even if I completely disagree with it. Now, that's not to mean that, if my daughter has really good points, I'm not going to, go in the back bedroom and be like, okay, love, I think that maybe we should reconsider this rule because, our kids have a really good point here or whatever. Like, doesn't mean I'm not going to fight their position. But in front of our children, I will always take their dad's side. And that's just an absolute, and it's okay. So I love it that my children know that my husband and I go on a date every single week, and that, that comes before the things that they're doing, and they're going to be okay. Like, I've always known, I don't want to say that. I haven't always known. This was tough for me when my kids were very, very small. But I've always had faith in the idea that if I took care of my marriage and my spouse, if we go on vacation or we go on dates, that my kids would be better for it. So knowing that there are people that can take care of my children, they may not do it exactly the way I do it, but it's great for them to know that other adults can help them, that, they can create relationships with other people that can help them in their lives, and that I have trust in them because I want to take care of that. My primary relationship with their dad is so important to me.
Definitely. It really does take a village, right? It's not just to support the child. We have to look at it way more holistically. What does it take to support us to be the type of mom or dad that we want to be? And a lot of that does come down to the marriage, because our struggles inside the marriage permeates every aspect of our life. And so we really have to take that into consideration and take it seriously and make that effort to cultivate the type of relationship that you want. And yeah, so much truth to this. You're actually the first other relationship coach like I've ever had on the show. So this is just like so amazing. I'm like just over here nodding my head to everything you're saying for those who are listening and not able to see us. I could not agree more. So like on that same vein of like being a better mom, right? Like, how do you think having that strong physical and sexual intimacy makes us better moms? Like, why is this so important? Because as women, like, we're often like, oh, we'll do things for kids, but we won't do things for ourselves. So like, for those moms who are still working on their belief that they get to love themselves most, why is this a good thing for them as a mom? How does this make them a better mom?
Yeah, I think you run into a whole lot of problems, and you probably teach this really well. But when you make your kids the nucleus of your home and your family, and everything revolves around the children, you run into a lot of problems. Like, you're crippling them in a lot of ways.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so I was just at a conference, and I loved this so much, is that the one of the speakers said, and I wish I could remember who, but said that the most tragic form of neglect, you can be such a great parent, but if you personally don't live up to your highest potential, it's like the worst thing you can do for your kids. So if you don't become the person that you are meant to become, that God made you to be because of your children, you're putting so much baggage into them, right? You're like not giving them permission then to grow into the greatest person that they can be. So when you live up to your full potential, when you take care of yourself, when you follow your dreams, when you live out your passion, when you create that relationship with their other parent, right? You are giving them the greatest gift, which is the allowance to do that themselves. When you do that and they watch you and they experience you become all that you were meant to be, that is the like most priceless, beautiful gift that you can give them. So yes, it's important to take time for yourself. It's important to cultivate your own dreams and your own vision for who you were meant to be, right? And for us, that's coaching marriages. Like for me, like I want my legacy to be not only my children, but to be helping create better marriages, which creates better, stronger families, which creates stronger communities, which make this world a better place to live, right? So when I die around my bedside, I want my husband standing there. I want my children and my grandchildren standing there. And my last words will be, please, please follow your dreams. Live to your highest potential and don't let anyone stop you or tell you that you can't do it.
Definitely, definitely. And having that part of you, like sex is a part of you. Like it, when you have a healthy sex life, like you really can feel like a goddess. Like you feel like so raw and vulnerable and wild at the same time. It's just like there's a piece of you inside that is meant to feel passionate and satisfied. And so if you're letting that piece go right now, it's not too late. And know that it's an important piece of you that gets to still be here, even though you're a mom. You get to still have sides of you that you don't show to your kids, right? You get to do what you need to do to feel, like you said, your best. Right. So don't deny parts of yourself that used to be here just because you've become a mom. They still get to be here, very much so. And I would argue that it's even more important to let that be a part of you, because you don't want to become this like shell of a person just because you have more responsibility, right? That just means you get to be a better prioritizer. That's all. Right? Like you get to still be you. You get to still love your life, and your kids will follow suit because you are literally their model of what life looks like after you have a family. So if you want them to be really serious and like only be like, okay, I'm going to make my kids cookies and cook all my meals from scratch and be this like homemaker who has no life outside of my family. If you want that for them, continue what you're doing. But I'm going to just say that if you're listening to the show, that is not what you want. You want to empower yourself to really live life fully. So don't deny parts of yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're both trying to say.
And you said something that was so important. And I just want to like bring it out just a little bit more, because your God-given sexuality is how you partner with God to create. It's how we create life, right? We partnered with our spouse. You needed both of us, our husband and a wife, and you partner with God to bring children here to this earth, right? And that's not the only thing that it's good for. Like you tap into that primal human passionate part of yourself when you just let yourself go. And so many people do that in such a guarded way. Like, I don't want to let you know that I crave you, that I want this pleasure for myself, right? But when we can really get down to just our primal instincts and just let our partner in on that really human, animalistic side of ourselves, when we can unleash that kind of passion, that opens up the door to so much creation, creating the life that you want, creating the love story that you want, creating the family that you want, creating the story that you want told about your life. That is what sex has the power to do for you.
Yeah, it really helps you feel more confident, more creative, even like just it stokes something inside of you that really cannot be replaced with anything else. And for those who are not, like faith driven, like a lot of Monica's listeners are, sub in universe, sub in, whatever applies to you and that you can relate to, because we at our core, that's a part of us. Like, it's not something that's like, oh, that's a nice to have. It is an essential part of us that really helps us be the person we are meant to be. So don't shy away from it. And yes, I know you were likely raised with that, like that good girl mentality, like
Good
be
girls don't like
appropriate. Exactly. Like, let's just like burn that. Okay. Like, live life how you want to live, be unapologetic about it, and let your spouse satisfy you. Okay. Like, I want that for you. I want you to have a good, healthy, fun sex life. And like, re-listen to this episode if you need to help yourself create that. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but know that it's totally possible. And you don't have to keep feeling like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. Like, we're doing a great job. We're great partners. And, it's like, what if it could be better than fine? What if it could be great? Like, you heard Monica describe her husband, right? She said he was hunky. Like, what if you could like get to that point where you're like, man, my husband's fine. Or like, look at that. Like, look at his arms. Like, whatever. Like, what
It's
if
so
you could
funny.
just have those gaga eyes again?
Yes,
Like,
it's so funny. And this won't come all at once. And I'm telling you, when you have young children, it's much more difficult. But at this point in our marriage, we've been married for 20 years. And I kid you not, I see my husband and I like just want to spread my legs for him. Like, it sounds so crazy, but I want him so close to me. Like, I do. I think that he's so sexy and so powerful and he's so good to me. And I just, like, I want to get him as close as I possibly can to me. And how do I do that? It's like by engulfing him inside of me, right? And so like, see if you can't figure out how to do that. And it takes practice and it takes intention and it takes like focused energy in that direction. Like, think about, what does your partner do that turns you on, right? Like, I was working with a client just the other day and she was saying like, oh, like when I turn my husband down, he pouts or he gets really grumpy and he just kind of like a little kid who you told him he can't have a toy at the store, right? And she goes, that's so unattractive. Like, I can't even. And I'm like, what does he do that turns you on? Like, figure that out and then tell him. Be like, hey, when you pout like that, that's kind of unattractive. But you know what turns me on more than anything? When you come home and you jump into the work of the household, or you put the kids to bed, or I see you like walking and talking with one of our children. Like, that turns me on so much. So when you feel this like pull to me and I maybe turn you down or something like that, and you take that energy instead of pouting about it and you get to work doing one of these things, then holy crap. Like, I want you so bad. Like, have those conversations with your partner. Give them that gift. What's inside of you? Like, what's going on in your brain, right? They can't read your mind, but you can give them all of those cheat codes, is what I call them. Like, give them the cheat codes. What can they do that turns you on? As I promise you, they'll do it.
Yes, definitely. And a simple reframe, right? Like, he's pouting. Why is he pouting? He wants you. Isn't that an incredible feeling, to feel wanted? Yes. Right? Like, yeah, they're not going about it the way you want to, but that's where the teaching comes into play, right? Because what if that was cute to someone else in their past relationship and that's just what they've done? Or what if that's just how they've learned to deal with things? Like, you're responding to it differently. Yeah, exactly. At the end, they just want to connect with you. And I was actually helping a client with something like this. She's like, I had 10 pages left in my book and he wanted to have sex and I didn't want to. And he got really upset. And I was like, first of all, sex is not your job. It's something that you want to desire to do, and you get to finish that book. So if that's not a convenient time, tell him when it would be, right? Like, because when we say no and we don't follow it up with anything, it kind of sounds like, oh, I don't know when you're going to want to have sex with me. Do you even want to have sex with me? Like, men also have insecurities. They also feel undesirable or unwanted. So make sure that the way you're responding also helps them feel secure while still like, okay, well, I desire to do this right now. Like, you get to still do what you want to do. You're not just here to be like, okay, I'm your sex slave. Like, that's not what we are. We get to have a healthy, consensual, desirable relationship in that world. And so communication goes both ways, right? Like, you tell them what you want, but also like, hey, this is not a good time. Like, I don't like to have sex after 11 o'clock because I'm really tired. But if we can somehow make our routine, including like the housework and the kid stuff, so that we can have sex before that, I'm totally game. But once it's 11 o'clock, like, I'm that pumpkin, like, no, I'm going to sleep. Like, it's not happening.
That's right. Teach your partner how to treat you, how to cherish you, how to turn you on, how to pleasure you. You've got to teach them. You are the expert on you, but you can teach them how to be it as well. But you've got to figure yourself out first. And that's a step that most women love to skip. They just think their partner should know, right? Like, it's too hard for me to figure it out. You figure it out, right? And that's never going to work. So you have to bring it back to yourself. You've got to take the time, energy, focus on yourself, and then teach your partner what you need.
Yes, I feel like all marriages could be so much better if we just took responsibility for understanding ourselves, right? If we just did that, then we could have really, really productive conversations and meaningful growth through those conflicts and get closer. Like, that is truly how you can use challenges as a catalyst to your growth, whether it's in your emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, partnership, anything. Like, just focus on, what do I want? What do I like in the bedroom or wherever you like to have sex? Like, what turns me on? If you don't know because you have subscribed to that good girl mentality for way too long, go ahead and do me a favor. Unsubscribe to that. Go spend some time with yourself, date yourself, get curious, try things, and like, oh, I don't like that. Oh, I love this. And share it or explore with your partner, right? Like, it gets to be fun. It gets to be exploratory. It gets to be something that is light. It doesn't have to be awkward, right? Like, go at your pace that you're comfortable with, and then add a little bit of discomfort, because that's what growth is, right? It's uncomfortable sometimes.
So good. So good.
Okay, so what can women do with their partner to make sexual intimacy more desirable after having kids?
I want you to set a time where you talk about these things. So a great way to do this is to go for a walk at least once a week, but if you can swing it more. But make it like Tuesday sex talks, okay? Just like, even put it in your calendar if you have to. And I want you to get uncomfortably vulnerable. But I want you to make it just a normal part of what you share with each other. How are you doing? How is this going? Like, in fact, I probably should make this available on my website somewhere, but like, there are kind of evaluations you can take. Where did you learn what you learned about sex? What would it mean to your partner for you to realize your own sexuality? How important is it in your marriage for you to feel sexually attracted to your partner, right? There's all these questions that you can ask yourself. And I want you to take it really seriously. Spend some time thinking about, where did you learn about sex? What did you learn about sex? What is it serving you, or is it not serving you? What would you rather feel about sex, right? And how important is it for you to really get that figured out? And I want you to first and foremost not judge yourself, because we're born and we have this garden. And before we can do anything about it, before we have any say in the matter, things get planted in our garden, in our sexual garden, these ideas, these values, these ways of looking at it, right? And so once we're an adult, and especially after we're married in a committed, loving relationship with another person, it's 100% our responsibility to go through that garden and weed out the things that are not serving us. It's not our fault that they're there. We couldn't control what got planted in our garden until we take possession, until we take responsibility over that garden. And at that point, we can go through and say, this thought isn't serving me. This idea doesn't help me at all. Pull those weeds out and then start looking for podcasts like mine, like Michelle's, books. Start looking for TED Talks. Start looking for teachers and leaders that can plant new ideas that will serve you and your spouse and your family better. And then start planting them and cultivating them and giving attention to them, right? And as you're going through this journey, share that with your spouse. Allow them to do the same. Find out where they got their ideas about sex. Because I promise you, you can cultivate a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful garden that smells sweet and puts into your life all the beauty that it deserves. But it's not ever just going to happen. Like you don't just walk outside one day and your garden is perfectly planted. You have to put in the work. And so if you will do that, if you will carve out some time and do Sex Talk Tuesday with your spouse every single week, and in the interim, in between those times, you will pay attention to your thoughts and your ideas, and you will search for good content to help you replace those ones that aren't serving you. I promise you, in time, you will have everything that you've ever desired. And it will be so beautiful. And your kids will be able to walk through that garden. And they're going to have to do this work for themselves, no matter how well you do this. But it will be easier for them to recognize this is a weed and this is a flower if you are doing this work.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yes, it takes two, but it only takes one person to start it, to lead it. And it doesn't mean you're going to be the leader forever, right? Like you get to walk alongside them and they get to choose whether they come along or not. And hopefully they do, right? And the way you show up, the work that you do really influences how they respond. And so know that you have so much power in what you do and how you show up. And so don't underestimate your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, because it really does make a difference. Okay.
Be willing to go first. Be willing to go first.
For sure. Yeah. We're all independent here. And so take that lead, right? And make space for them to come along, right? Because that's the whole point. So Monica, I feel like we could keep going forever and ever, and I want to respect our listeners' time. So, Monica, you have a series of online trainings coming up in a summit where I happen to be one of the speakers, and I'm so honored. Can you share more about it with our listeners?
Absolutely. It's so simple. Michelle has a link that she will share with you, I'm sure, in the show notes, but you can learn more by going to secretsofhappilyeverafter.com/SHEA, and that stands for Secrets of Happily Ever After, SHEA Summit. But definitely click on Michelle's link and you can find out about the incredible lineup of speakers. There's 34, and that's not like including the spouses that speak together, but there's 34 separate presentations from the best experts, like the most incredible speakers and teachers on this topic about how to write and live out your happily ever after story. And they talk about all things. We're talking about motherhood. We're talking about intimacy. We're talking about money. We're talking about everything that is required to live happily ever after with your partner. So do yourself a favor. The most beautiful thing about it is it's 100% free for a time. You have access to all of these interviews and you can decide which ones you love. And if you really want to get the best experience, you'll upgrade, because I promise you there will be interviews that you'll want to listen to over and over and over again. And when you go through something hard in your life a little bit down the road, you're going to want to be able to access some of those interviews, some of your favorites. And there's so many great bonuses that go along with that. So do yourself a favor and go check out secretsofhappilyeverafter.com. And you'll see on there so many different things that will aid you in really taking this journey of self-development and connection with your partner and like growing into all of the things that you were meant for.
Yes, it's going to be so good. I'm so excited for it. It's coming up really soon. So definitely check out the link in my show notes so that you can head on over there and sign up. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, that's it really. It's going to secretsofhappilyeverafter.com. There you can find my podcast where I talk about all of these things weekly. And you'll find some great free resources as well as all of the things that I'm working on there. So secretsofhappilyeverafter.com.
Amazing. Okay. For fun, I love to ask guest questions so that our listeners can get to know you better. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. What's a food you can eat every day and never get sick of?
Such a great question. Probably chicken and vegetables. It sounds crazy, but I eat chicken and vegetables every day. I love them.
Wow. Okay. Cool. What's your favorite place to vacation?
Anywhere on a beach. I love the beach, the sounds of the beach, the smells of the beach, walking along the beach with my husband. I love the beach.
I love the beach too. One of my favorite places is Maui.
Ooh, yes, that is a beach.
What's your favorite trashy TV show?
Oh, The Bachelor or Dancing with the Stars. I love Dancing with the Stars. I love hearing their stories, and I love that they're like being so vulnerable and putting themselves out there and learning this new skill. And I just like, I cry. Like,
oh, I love that so much. But yeah, I love The Bachelor.
AGT. We watch that as a family, and I love it when they get rewarded for the hard work that they've done to like figure out their skill.
It's incredible how talented people are. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. What's your favorite thing to do for self-care?
I love to run and I love to read. I love to, and I love to just learn, like learning through reading or listening to podcasts while I run. That's my favorite way to take care of myself.
What's something you said you never do when you become a mom that you now do?
Oh, that one came out of left field. Something that I thought I would never do. Like bring my kids lunch if they forgot it. Like I hate it when my kids don't have something to eat at school.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they really appreciate that. What's something you're really looking forward to?
Oh gosh, you know what? That's a tough question because I love the stage of life that I'm in, and I'm constantly wanting to just freeze time. So something that I'm really looking forward to is like whatever the next thing is. Like I love being right where I'm at, and I love whatever is coming next. So, I mean, okay, let me answer that question maybe how you asked it. I'm so looking forward to hanging out with grandkids like that. I feel like that's probably coming up here pretty quick in the next few years. And I cannot wait to be a Mimi. Like that is, I'm dying.
I've heard lots of grandparents say if they could go back and do it again, they would just go straight to being grandparents.
Right. It's like the reward for all the hard work of parenting, right? Like I'm just like, please give me grandkids. Like I'm going to be the best grandma, and I'm going to take your kids all the time so that you can go be a couple.
Yes.
And like do all these things that I've taught you to do, right?
Absolutely.
Like I love my kids, but like give me all the grandkids and you guys go and like be happy and have lots of sex.
Yes. That. What's your favorite song to jam out to?
Oh, I just came back from a huge event and they had so much great music, but I am unstoppable. Da, 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 da. Like that song just like struck me. I love it.
Yeah.
I think when
Yeah.
you really like take in those words, like there's just nothing you can't do. If you put your mind to it and you focus on it, you're unstoppable.
I love it. Yeah, I love when songs make me feel really powerful and confident. Like, heck yeah.
Do that.
Do it. Do it. I love it. Thank you so, so much for being on the show. Listeners, if you loved what we talked about, definitely go check out that summit on the link in my show notes. B, go check out her podcast and go find her. Go look at her website, see what you can learn from her because she's incredible. And we just want you to have happy, healthy, sexy marriages.
Hey, Michelle, thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast.
Of course. I loved it so much. All right. Until next time, I'll see you on the next episode. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Marriage and Motherhood podcast. I hope that this episode helped you deepen your relationship with your husband and, more importantly, with yourself. If you know someone that this episode would help, please share it. All right. See you back here next week. Bye.